Good evening. It's such a pleasure to be here. After all the heavy conversations that you've no doubt heard through the day, here's adding more heaviness. I hope you weren't thinking that it's going to be light-hearted, particularly focusing on the flavors of films per se. Let's go a bit deeper than that. Let's go into touching upon the formative years of what made Siddharth. It's such a pleasure to have you here, Siddharth. And I say this because I see you as a very important artist, both for your contributions in cinema and beyond. You are an actor who's given what I think is your career best performance in your most recent film, Chitta. As an artist, as a public personality, you are a free-thinking voice in a time of polarization and fear as well. And over the years, of course, we've discussed cinema and its nuances. But today we are in the presence of many students here, youngsters who at this age particularly often seek a sense of direction. I don't think that ever goes away, by the way. Some reassurance that the world is all right. And I thought we'll speak about your formative years. And let's start off by having you talk about when you were a youngster. I don't want to imply that you're not one now. One of the first questions we're asked then is what we want to be when we grow up, right, as a career. What was that for you? When your teacher looked at you and said, Sidhu, what do you want to be? What was that for you?
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that very kind introduction, Sudhir. So when we discussed having a conversation here in front of students, I told him, it doesn't matter what we try to do, it's important what we try not to do. So we can't be boring. So was the first, instruction I gave him and request. And the second I said is, no matter what, we are not going to dumb down this conversation in order not to be boring. So we're going to try to do both of those things with this conversation. I hope that's okay with our large student crowd here. Because talking about cinema is something that I take very, very seriously, especially when I talk to youngsters about it, because this is my 23rd year in the business, and from the time I started out to now, I've asked for one thing more than anything else, which is validation for our intelligence, for being part of an industry that's given very little credit for being responsible or cerebral, or things you expect from other industries when you expect a good conversation about how they go to work and how they do what they do. And in my business, it's always brought down to frivolity and trying to make somebody get a smile or a laugh. So I don't work at the circus, so that's not what I'm going to do today. And now I'll start with the question that Sudhir asked me, which is what I wanted to be when I was growing up. And the most important thing about being an adult today for me is keeping the child I used to be alive inside myself. And that's what I work on, really hard. So when I was young, I was, shock, surprise. I was very outspoken and I thought a lot about myself. And I was a confident kid. And I told my dad I wanted to be a musician, I wanted to be in cinema, and I wanted to be a cricketer. So just to give you context, I work in films as an actor and a producer. I perform on stage as a singer today. And I just shot in Chepauk for a film based on cricket, for which I played pretty good cricket for the last 3 days. And it's called Test. So you tell me, can I go home and tell my dad? I think I was pretty accurate when I said I wanted to be in music and cinema and cricket. And I remember my dad telling me nobody else has done all of those things at the same time. And I said, well, I'll be the first. And I think that's what I can summarize my whole career and my whole outlook to life, my creativity and, my energy down to two things. One is my curiosity and the second is my enthusiasm, which is also read as confidence. So if there's any two things I would want you to, please, it's yours, take it from me, is your curiosity and your enthusiasm. So that's what I think you guys should take with you as well, because, like I said, you set out to do the things you decide to do, and you end up doing the things that you decide to do. And everything else in the middle, you'll find reasons to say, oh, that didn't happen because of another human being, or that didn't happen because of the context, or that didn't happen because of the system. All of that is secondary. What you want to be and what you want to do is already very firmly established inside yourself. So you just have to look inwards, and everything is within. Whatever is without is either illusion or hearsay. So you have to look within yourself, and you have to listen to the voice that's telling you what you want to do with your life. Because no amount of motivational talking and no amount of, history watching and seeing how other people did it is going to get you the results that you want. There's only one person you need to impress with what your choices are and what you're going to do with your life, and that is yourself. And if you do that from a very young age, I think we've been conditioned a little wrong. They told us you can't be selfish, and it's a very rubbish word. Self-love is very important, and you have to put yourself on at least a certain pedestal so that you can listen to yourself when you speak, and then you can, be a better version of yourself. So love yourself. Don't be afraid to celebrate yourself. Be proud. Being proud is not bad. Pride might be looked at as a vice or even a sin, but pride is different from you. Be proud of what is good in you and what you want to do. So for me, growing up, I liked making people laugh. I used to love singing. I used to love thinking I'll write stories and tell stories and be able to live a full life so that I can write the stories that I see and experience in real life. Not that I, voyeuristically stole from somebody else. So that's what brought me to where I am today. And I still get a bit confused when I realize it's been 2 decades, right? Because I read somewhere recently, and this is something I totally agree with, it takes 20 years to become an artist. And I know I already thought I was a great artist when I started performing for the first time. But 22 years later, I think I'm starting to become an artist. And now it's about becoming a better artist. And a better artist is someone who remembers what they learned along the way, and they keep polishing it, and they don't forget to live their life and experience. And I see these lovely faces here. These faces go into your mind when you prepare for a role. Because you don't say, oh, in this scene, this protagonist or this character goes through this, so how will I feel this? Is not acting. It's about thinking, how would somebody in that position perform it? So the first step is empathy. And the second step is having a good enough sense of observation and sense of both memory and posterity. Then remember that and try to be a human being who's not yourself, and be both believable as well as fitting into the furniture of what the writer and the director create in a scene. So acting is a very dense, incredibly vast experience. And I think I'm just starting to scratch the surface, and it's not what you've read. I've read all the books, and I've met all the masters, and I've spoken to all of them. But each person's journey is individual. So, I think I'm starting to get better at that.
Siddharth, I loved that answer. As you were talking, I wondered what sort of complex question did I ask you for all these great insights that you share.
You brought up my childhood, so I think that is a pretty complex starting point, right?
Fair enough. If only everybody were as eloquent as you, then I think all the YouTube interviews that I do would become far more simpler, I think.
Sudhir, your interviews will never be simple. I think our conversations are never simple, and I wouldn't trust anybody more than Sudhir with this job of handling me on stage, because I find him very well read, very well spoken, and he's very difficult to throw off, because I think Sudhir is the kind of guy who in 6th grade used to intimidate his English teacher. With just his, is that how much you're giving me for my test? No, here, take 10 marks more. So I feel like that's how I react when I look at you. Yeah.
And he just added more depth in his voice than I ever can. I think that's what makes him a good actor. As an actor, people seldom see you for who you are, right? You have a bunch of people already judging you for that label. You have a bunch of people already, sort of elevating you to the skies because you belong to that label. So today, before you came here, before you sat here, how much of yourself did you want to really show the people here, show everyone here? What sort of decisions govern how you present yourself in any space?
Here's the thing. If you've known me even for 10 minutes, you know that I don't filter and I don't prepare for how I'm going to present myself to people I'm meeting for the first time. Because for me, whether I'm meeting you for the first time or you've known me, fortunately or unfortunately, for 10 years, I'm exactly the same. So this is how I walk into a room, this is how I would talk, and this is, if you ask me a question, I'll reply to it. So how much of myself am I going to expose? How much trouble am I going to get myself into with a microphone in my hand? These are not questions I think about too much. But I have promised my parents over the last few years that I will be spoken about more for my art than for my politics or for my courage or all of those very confusing adjectives. But, so yeah.
Fair enough. Let's return to the topic of careers. When we speak about careers, we often talk about passion. And I think when everybody is pretty much in school, towards the end of it, or starting off at a college, you often decide to follow your passion. That word becomes very prominent suddenly from out of absolutely nowhere. But few people are able to follow suit and move on with doing what it is that their heart wants, tells them at that space. Looking back at your life, what's the place of this word, this passion word for you? You told us that you wanted to do about 2-3 things during your formative stages. And I almost suggested that it was impossible for you to do all of them together because cricket and cinema, they're diametrically opposite, but you already told us how you've managed to do several of them. What place does this word hold for you, the word passion, and what place should it hold for people about to make something of themselves?
I'll tell you, the most unfortunate thing about growing up today, I mean, I speak to younger people and from their experiences you understand that the binary of winning and losing has become such a violent binary where you're told you have to win. And when we were growing up also, they said, no, it's not about winning, it's about, enjoying yourself. I get all of that. That was in one section of a very small part of society. There would be that thing that it's okay for you to just have fun. But as you grow up with that, when you then look around and society is showing you that winners are the ones that are being called good. So they never won anything of consequence, but that word winner. So you associate that success and that success is something which is very scary to look at from a distance as a kid. And for me, the cure for that kind of violence of that word success or winning is this word passion. Because do you decide you've won based on somebody else's rule book, or do you decide you won based on why you left home to persevere or to work hard? So you need to first set up the rules of the game so that you can give yourself a chance of winning. If somebody else holds the power of telling you whether you won or not, is damn confusing. So again, when you look inwards, what you're finding is your passion. So for me, passion, if you ask me what do I want to do, what is my passion? My passion is to make films. I love making films. Now in that passion, is it a one-word answer? It's very, again, it's very detailed for me because I love process. So you learn something and you realize that that's the right or a better way of doing something which you weren't doing before. So you learn that process. Then you want to pass that on and you want to tell somebody else who's in the position you were in 5 days ago that this is the process. We call that best practices. So for me, making films is the subjective way of saying that that's what my heart tells me to do. The objective thing is doing what I do well. And well is best practices. So it's easy to say it's objective. So you try to do it a little better, and for that you need a lot of passion.
I know a lot of people who look up to people who made something of themselves, who become very successful in, the careers that they created for themselves out of passion. I hear a lot of youngsters often talk about, Ajit's film Mugavari comes to mind. He's currently pursuing something, but it takes a step back because he prioritized something else at one point. So is it a privilege to be able to follow your passion? Do you need a basic sort of support system in order for you to be able to do that? Did you have that? Were you fortunate to have that, or how do you see this?
No, see, the word privilege will color whatever answer I give you right now, because no matter what story I tell you, I'm very privileged. I mean, all my life, I've never lived in fear. I've never lived in a sense of being ghettoized, traumatized, physically or mentally or spiritually assaulted. I've never experienced any of these things. So that privilege is going to be in everything. But that can't, I mean, become the reason that the following of the dream becomes any less, special. That way, though, because I'm born and I will die privileged, none of my actions or thoughts have any consequence. I should just live in guilt. I can't live my life then like that. But for me, a lot of, like Ram Gopal Varma's film Company, there's a famous line that says, फैसले गलत नहीं होते, उनके नतीजे गलत होते हैं. Decisions are not the problem. The consequences of those decisions is where the fault lies. The positive flip of that is also this, which is Chitta example. People said after it was made, after it was seen, after it was celebrated, people said, yeah, it's a no-brainer. Of course you should make a film like this. I'm like, that's not how the film was made. We were constantly pushing a boulder up a mountain because everybody said nobody will want to watch a film like this. They said, why are you making a film about this? Why are you producing this film? But when the result happens, everyone's like, yeah, I always knew that boy's idea of that film. So it's very easy to hindsight 2020, right? Similarly, for me, it's very nice now that, yeah, my privilege probably helped me get through 23 years of a career in cinema after an MBA. So, So
no, not for a minute did
but
I.
you know what I'm saying? But the fact that I said at 16, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. And I give that passion is what drives everything. And you have to know what you want in order to be passionate about it. If you don't know what you want, then all your pep talk and passion will amount to not knowing what you're talking about. So,
How do you develop the conviction to follow one specific area that you're interested in?
I mean, ask them, if somebody is studying science, how did they choose science?
No, I ask you this because I notice that it often keeps changing. It's fairly mutable, isn't it? I mean, you like certain things, you want to make something of yourself. Maybe a lot of people hear you talking.
A lot of kids here, sorry, I'm saying kids, I didn't mean that in like I'm an old person thing. I mean, a lot of people here have heard this, like jack of all trades, master of none. All nonsense. What does that mean? Jack of all trades, master of none. What an idiotic, reductive way to tell a child to, not do many things at the same time. You're saying multitasking is for losers. Who told you this? So please do as many things on a horizontal value chain as you want. It doesn't always have to be vertical in a straight line. You can do multiple things. You're not in college for the rest of your life, right? Where you have mains and subseas and all of that. You can just do whatever you want, whenever you want it. And that's the beauty. You're growing up and becoming adults in a generation that talks about intermittent fasting. Okay? Which is basically telling you don't eat breakfast, which is what you've been eating your whole life. Your grandfather's been eating their whole life. Today they're saying don't eat breakfast. So, you're living in a time where even your food is being told to you about, so you decide what to eat, when to eat, as long as you want to eat it. Same thing applies for your career. Same thing applies for love. Just do in love I'm not saying do like meet 20 people. No. Please don't make a, thumbnail out of this. What I mean is, you have to keep your mind open like the previous speaker said. And don't get, closeted into one straight line that you're stuck in. Next 20 years, you have to do this like this. Don't do anything like that, yeah?
Sir, you spoke about Chitta and how difficult it was to conceive of it, execute it, and now in hindsight, of course, because of its success, everybody seems to think that, yeah, that was the way to go. You did well. So there is a purity of vision that was retained across Chitta, I think, at every step of the way, which is why the film turned out to be the way that it did. And how today this purity that we speak of expression, say, how do you do the right thing, say the right thing, without worrying about self-preservation, without worrying about retribution, when there is no necessary practical incentive to be that?
There's a big problem with one word that you use in that question, the word right. How do you know to say the right thing? You're saying, if I say something and you think it's the right thing, it's because you and I agree with each other. If the entire front row thinks that I'm saying the wrong thing, then this question doesn't even mean anything. So what is the right thing? Apne dil ki awaaz suno, okay, is the right thing. March to the beat of your own heart. Okay, fantastic. There's no right and wrong. There's only what you will do and what you will not do. Each individual has a mirror. Look in the mirror. There are things I will do even if it's for free. There are things I won't do even if you pay me 10 crores.
Okay, so let me be very specific then. On social media, while you were still there on Twitter, you did not hesitate to make your opinions felt.
That I've been doing since 1985.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how, I mean, now you're not on Twitter, and I think Twitter is the worst off.
Twitter is now X of mine, you know. We don't talk anymore. Yeah.
I think it's worse off because I think the discourse isn't meeting a necessary certain. I mean, you spoke about
Well,
how
you're
there is
being
no
very
good and
polite.
bad.
It became toxic, and it was just, you know, you don't want to get into pardon my French, a shit fight with somebody who has no scruples because you're just going to get really messed up. So just get out. It's pointless. There's no discourse. It is just, well, you know, bottom of the barrel. You can get as many of these metaphors, but yeah, it's really poor.
Yeah.
I told you, we also live in a time when somebody is killing somebody else. I'm saying, please don't kill that person. They're like, who are you to say don't kill this person? Do you know who this person is? Do you know why you should kill this person? Do you know where he came from? That's the world you're living in right now. Where if you tell somebody, please don't kill another person, it's a fight. This is not the world we used to live in. First, nobody kill anybody. Let's just sit and talk. That used to be the world we lived in. So it's a dangerous world. So now sit and talk only doesn't mean anything in the information age. Tomorrow you won't know who said what, where. Everything will be deep fake. As it is, WhatsApp University is the world's largest talked university right now. On top of that, tomorrow these guys are very uneducated buffoons. What are you going to do? And they're going to, you know, then use digital technology, hacking, deep fake. You will have no authenticity. We don't have a media. It's just, you know, scary place to be saying that, yeah.
Thank you for hesitating for a second before you said that.
Yeah, so we can cut it and, you know, edit it differently, right, Kaveri ma'am? Come on. Teach them some cinematic liberty. Come on. Yeah.
Let's, with respect to Chitta, I mean, I keep going back to that film because I think it's one of my most favorite films of the last year. It pushed boundaries in many spaces. Commentary on men, portrayal of child safety, characterization of the protagonist that wouldn't necessarily be, you know, unicolored. If someone says they want to make progressive cinema today, what are some things that you would expect to see it do?
I'll tell you what helped me, and this might not be easy for you to follow, but if you can take the root of it. I called Chitta my first film in many ways because it took me my whole career to make a film where I can say everything that's on celluloid is exactly what we wanted to say in that story. It is made to the best of our abilities technically. It was released and distributed to the best way possible, and we stand by the entire film. So to be able to say that, I self-funded Chitta. So for me to even attempt to make a film like Chitta, I have to make a whole lot of money, I have to pay my taxes, and I have to keep some aside for my family, and then whatever's left I put back into my cinema. So the good part of that is that I don't have to answer to anybody else except myself. Because with cinema, I'll tell you, I don't know how much this applies to every other profession, but with cinema, you leave your house, let's say on a Monday morning, to make a film. And from there, every Friday, a new film is made, a new star is born, a new trend is created, a new safe way to make money will be introduced. The system gets used to that, but you can't keep modifying the product you left home to make with what is working. Achha, let's just take this from this and put it into this film. You can't do that. And there are films where we have all done that. And they become, some people ask you, did you even see the film before releasing it? Why did you want to make this film? Because sometimes films get confused from the point of making, the conception to the point of consumption. And so for me, that freedom, that making my own rules, having to answer to myself, and it being my money, it really, really helped with a film like this.
With Chitta, you really broke away from the sort of assumptions people might have had about the type of roles you could play, or you have played. I ask you this not just in terms of cinema, but in terms of many people's lives. After you do a certain thing for a few years, 10 years, 15 years, you often get boxed into a safe cocoon, right? Because you now know how that system functions and you know how to rig it in such a way that provides for your basic survival. Now, how do you break out of that? And I think you did that with Chitta. I don't know whether you set out to do exactly that, but, or whether it happened anyway. Now, what would your advice be to anyone who sort of box themselves into a safe space where they do the same things over and over again? Where comes this energy, this creativity to try and step out of that box? Is it because you have to? Is it because you were bored of what it was?
No. I told you, it's in my SOP, okay? The SOP is very simple. I didn't do an MBA and take a 9-to-5 job because I don't want to do anything twice. Because I'll tend to find fatigue or, boredom or something I don't want to do the same thing twice. I don't want the routine. I want to keep surprising myself. So the film industry is the best place in the world to do that. You don't even know if you'll have a job the next Friday. So it's great. So that was, one part of it. But when I was starting out, like I told you, I had very clear ideas of what I will not do more than what I will do, because I also wanted to write and direct and all of that. But as an actor, I said I won't do certain kind of films. I won't do, let's say, an item song. Something that's called that I find deeply disturbing, and I'll never do that. And I've never done it for 20 years, even though there's a lot of money in it. I turned down, the largest contract of my life 15 years ago for a fairness brand. And I said, are you mad? Why the hell would I endorse that? So there are things that I knew I will not do. Now, what you will do, it's a list of two things. One, what you want to do, and one, whatever the, opportunities, so to speak. So I was told to pick a language and work only there so that I can be the biggest star there after 20 years. So I said, but I don't want to be a star, I want to act. So then I said, whoever gives me the best, work, I'll go there. And I sat here after my first 2 films and I didn't get anything interesting, and then just, something just happened and I got my first film in Telugu. And I went there and I had a contract condition in 2004 that said, I will not do the film unless I am the voice that dubs the language. Nobody should dub for me in any film. I will speak the language no matter what language it is. So this was very important to me in 2004. So I learned Telugu in 2 weeks and went to shoot Nuvastanante Noddantana. Right? And I dubbed for myself for that film. I also dubbed for myself for the Telugu version of Aidharita, without knowing the language. I said, no, I have to learn the language. And then I learned, and I wrote a film in Telugu as my follow-up film to that. So that was, after doing the biggest hit of the year, I could have chosen to climb up in that same swing. I said, no, I'll write one film for myself and see what happens. Because I get to learn something new. I get to do something I haven't done before. So that was selfishly the way that I planned that.
So I guess the answer on some level...
No, so then people advised me, pick a language, now pick a language. So I was there 8 years, then I said, I'm not enjoying this, I don't want to be a star, I want to do new things. Like you said, know that people associate you with a certain... I didn't want anyone to associate me with anything. My job is to pretend to be somebody I'm not. So whoever that character is created by the writer and however the director tells me to perform it, I should be able to perform it. That's my job, to pretend to be somebody I'm not. So to become somebody, the moment he comes on screen, everybody's like, that's my guy, clap for him, is the exact opposite of why I became an actor. I love acting, I love being part of films, I love watching films with people and watching good acting or good films. But I don't want to be the biggest kid on the block or the most famous person or the number one, or everybody should always, think of me the same way. I don't want to do that. So I learned different languages. I worked in 6 languages now. I'm going to do my 7th next year. And when I produced a film called Chitta, I dubbed it in Tamil, Telugu. I learned Kannada and dubbed it in Kannada for the first time. It took me 6 days and 70 pages of writing my own dialogues in all of my other languages so that I could speak perfect Mandya Kannada. So I've always wanted to do films and play characters and speak their language the way their locals speak it. Not just learn it in 2 days and, and speak Ungalike and Ramba Padicherika. I don't want to do that. I want to speak the language like a local. So that makes me happy. So after 20 years, if I'm telling you that I have even one film in 7 languages, the value of that in your eyes might not be great because you're like, how many 100 crore hits have you had? I'm like, wrong number, you know. It's apples and oranges. So you have to decide what is currency in your life. Otherwise, none of your achievements will matter. And that's why most people are unhappy, because they get what they were told they should get to be happy, then they get it and then they're even more unhappy. That's because they didn't know what they wanted in the first place. So if anything, the only luck, if just permutation, randomness, is me wanting to work in art. Even that my mother's probably, injected it into me, she, whatever. But that's apart from that intent that I think I will work in entertainment. When I was 10 years old, if I had not had that, I don't know. But luckily I had that, so I can't say, I hope you also can find a 10-year memory or something. But, that's what happened with me. I hope that makes sense.
So that it absolutely makes sense, and I'm told that we are coming to the end of the conversation now. Those who follow my conversations know that I'm just getting warmed up.
Yeah, this is first gear with Sudhir Srinivasan.
So maybe as a final question, I will ask you this: in the world that you live in today, what constitutes a responsible citizen?
A responsible citizen. Wow. First of all, pay your taxes. There are 10,000 reasons not to pay your taxes. There's only one reason to always pay your taxes. What he just said. To be a good citizen. Because, like I said, in my whole life, that's been number one. And I've been in this business more than half my life. And the fact that I still sit before you and proudly say that the reason I've never been, silenced in any way that's, sad or depressing is because nobody's ever been able to come into my house. They can say whatever they want from the outside. They can't come inside. So you need to do your job as a citizen and buy yourself that insurance. If you didn't do anything wrong, nobody can bring you down for something you never did. So that's one reason. But apart from that, this is a great country. And we call ourselves Indians in this room. None of us can fathom how big this country is and how many people constitute Indians. And beyond this room, as it starts widening, how little you know about the real life our country lives in. And for you to be able to be part of the discussion of how this country is run, you need to pay your taxes. And that's the first thing, right? The second thing, and this is very important, is to be able to affect your immediate surrounding. I think as a good citizen, just your immediate surrounding. Because today you're hearing 10,000 things all the time and you start thinking with one viral video, I'll change this forever. Nothing ever changes forever in an instant. Every single thing is just pushing stuff up a slope. But what you can affect is your immediacy, where you are around you. And, it doesn't always have to be people that you're sworn to protect like your family. It can be somebody outside of that. And even one person or two people outside that spectrum per person in their lives, if they can in some way affect their lives positively, then that's a really big citizen move. Because everything else is, money doesn't have any value anymore. People's lives don't have any value anymore. History doesn't have any value anymore. Authenticity doesn't have any value anymore. So what do you have left as a citizen to keep all of these things alive within yourself and be the best version of yourself that you can be? That's what a good citizen should do right now.
On that note, I think we'll open this session for a question or two, because I'm sure that a lot of people there do want to ask you certain questions.
Good evening, sir. I'm from Sasta Institute of Technology. My name is Jacinta. First of all, I'm a very big fan of you.
Thank you.
And everyone knows that cinema is highly persuasive. And according to you, what is cinema? And if you want to persuade something through in means of cinema, what it would be?
First of all, cinema is not persuasive enough. Otherwise, with 100 years of the messaging that has come from cinema, we should be a much better behaved society. So please stop giving cinema credit it does not deserve. Cinema is a mixture of two things. It is mainly entertainment and engagement. Okay? Now, what happens during this entertainment and what happens in the process of this engagement are just the two, waves that carry this medium through. But persuasiveness, even if it works in cinema, is fleeting, which is why it's called manipulation more than persuasion. So it's a magical medium. It can make you believe unbelievable things. And, as far as good and bad is concerned, throughout history, even our country's history, it's like Charles Dickens, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. There's good people and there's bad people. There's good messaging and there's bad messaging. So, that in the cinema also exists. And it's an artistic expression. And for me, it's always about supporting. Let them say whatever they say. You can choose not to see it, but I don't believe in saying that any work of art should not be released. Whichever side of the political, it can be left, right, center, none of the above, whatever. The artist should be allowed to make their films, and so that is my persuasion. That's what I would believe in. But otherwise, it's not that persuasive, yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Gideon. So we know you are a confident and an optimistic person, and I have seen your interview. I have quoted a statement: "Man mein hai Vishwas, pura hai Vishwas, hum honge kamyab ek din." So being in this society, like everyone tries to push you down always. It's general in a life of a teenager or a college student. So how you keep yourself optimistic all the time?
I told in the beginning of this conversation, thing I worked very hard on, because when I was a child, they said I used to speak like an adult. So now that I'm an adult, I try to remember that child who used to speak like an adult and try to be like that person. They say I don't age, I don't look, whatever. It's because of how I am on the inside. And for me, it's about, just being your young self. And that really, really helps with what you're talking about. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, thank you.
I'm Manaswini from Sastra University.
Hi.
You said that you didn't want to be associated with one thing, but today when we talk about Siddharth as an actor, everyone seems to think about Chitta. So what is your thought on that?
Well, that just means I have more work to come in the next year. When everybody's talking about your last film, things are very good. So, and to answer your question, my next 6 films, hopefully that's what I know my slate. My next 6 films, no film will have anything in any way to do with Chitta. I don't believe on milking things beyond what they're supposed to do. Chitta was an expression. It was a very important wake-up call for all of us in society, especially my female compatriots and parents. And that's what the film set out to do, and that's what it did it. So I don't like to do the same thing again and again. So it's not like I'm going to announce Chitta 2 next week. Yeah. So we won't do that. Don't worry.
That's sort of a trend, so I can see where the question came from.
Yeah. So there's no cinematic universe in my films. It's only one film at a time. Thanks.
Siddharth, thank you so much for this conversation. It stepped into many
ask
deep
them.
spaces.
Remember the 2 things. 1, that we'll try to inform you about something, and 2, we won't be boring. Kaveri ma'am, please tell me we passed. A loud round of applause for Sudhir and I. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's not easy speaking to young people. It's not easy. And I count myself in the audience as well, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.